Welcome to the regular meeting of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. We have a full agenda today, and we're going to get into it in just a moment. But for those who are watching us by television, you probably have been like me. You wonder to yourself, I wonder what these people who are commissioners do while they're waiting for the meeting to begin. Well, I'll share one with you. I like to call it Club Kaplan. He sits and plays records off of his telephone, and the most recent one was Georgia on My Mind by Ray Charles. And if you want to come to a meeting someday, you might be able to talk Ted into getting that song played, or any of your favorite songs, just by coming to the commissioners' meeting. Now, that's not a bad idea. What do you think, Ted? He thinks we ought to start. Okay. Do what?
People's business.
We have to do the people's business. So we will begin the people's business by turning the meeting over to our vice chairman, the former superintendent of schools in the Winston-Salem Forsyth County school system, and a very smart PhD, Don Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly welcome everyone to the second, as we're resuming from our briefing session this morning at 10. But this afternoon, we're going to review the items for our next Thursday's meeting, March 17th. We have one discussion item before we start, and we're going to hear a pickleball update from our survey from Damon Sanders Pratt. Tennis, maybe I should say probably more accurately, tennis/pickleball.
A Freudian slip.
I said, what?
A Freudian slip.
Yeah, well, no, that's probably a better way to say it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chairman and Commissioners. So the county staff have been working on whether or not to establish pickleball courts somewhere in the county. It really started from a fiscal year 22 budget document, board-directed initiatives. That's just kind of a reminder why we're doing this. On October 14th, staff was directed by the commissioners to move forward with a dedicated 9-court pickleball configuration at Joni Moser Park. Since we don't have any dedicated pickleball courts in Forsyth County's stock of athletic fields. Then on January 6th of this past year, 2022, $200,000 worth of pay-go was approved by the commissioners for that purpose. This is an old slide here, but the Forsyth County stopped programming and daily maintenance of tennis courts in 2009, calendar 2009. And so then Randy Pate Tennis Academy actually provided that service from 2009 to 2013, and then Winston-Salem Tennis started it from 2014 to 2018. They provided this service, and then Flex Tennis most recently from 2019 through 2021 leased the courts from Forsyth County to operate a tennis program. None of them have been able to continue very long in that operation, doing it this way by paying us a little lease and a portion of their revenues that they make. So we've had a series of operators at the courts from 2019 through 2021. We've had 3. So a survey was issued with the following options to continue the status quo. Actually, this is an older presentation here, but maybe we'll do it this way. So to continue the status quo, so the vendors would manage the courts, which that includes irrigation and brushing and cleaning the lines on soft courts. The second option was to turn those soft courts into hard courts and then let people play at no cost. So if we did that, then there would be no need to repurpose or hire new staff to maintain the soft courts, because you have to irrigate them and clean the lines off between play, so it takes some staff to do that. Then there's also the annual resurfacing cost of $15,000, and then 7 to 10 year larger resurfacing of $36,000 to have the soft courts. And then if they were converted to hard courts, then you'd have 10 hard courts, and that would give you the ability to have tournaments at Tanglewood confined to the park. Right now we have 2 different surfaces, so you can't do that. And then the third option was to turn the 6 soft courts into 10 pickleball courts at Tanglewood. So you still have 4 tennis courts at Tanglewood, and you'd have 10 pickleball courts closest to the road at Tanglewood. And then we would open all that up for free play. That is really short. Well, I can explain to you the rest. I've had a.
Why don't you go to the Elmo, because you really missed
Yeah.
I think you need to
Yeah.
go to your Elmo.
Get out of here.
I think you found the key to the problem.
Well, I actually have it. I got one here.
I'll be your
Okay.
Van White here, if you want it to be, so.
All right.
Because you want to talk a little, you want to look a little bit, you just.
Okay. So what is on the Elmo is the annual county budget results when the county ran tennis. So I know it's kind of small, but the bottom line is you can see for tennis, it's all red. So we lost between 77,000 and 63,000 in any given year, and it averaged about 72,000 a year. We lost running tennis. And that's partly because when we have our own program, tennis is really a seasonal activity when it's outdoors. And so we had staff year-round, and so we basically didn't make any money doing that, but we ran a good program. So people enjoyed the programming, but it wasn't a money-making venture. People felt like it was when we stopped doing it, and we got all these emails, but those are the actual numbers right there. So then we leased it out to a vendor, and again, it's small, but what you can tell is at the bottom is in the black all the way past the middle, and then the numbers in the red are relatively small, and they range from about a loss of $500 to $10,000 at the most. And that cost is going to be our resurfacing of the courts. That's the net of what they're paying us, and then our cost to resurface and take care of the courts. So that's what resulted in us doing the survey. And so I kind of went over those options already of 1, 2, and 3 that people got to choose from. So these are the results. The survey ran from February 1st through March 3rd, which was last Thursday. The results were that for option 1, you had 647 responses, or 42%. Option 2, which was to replace the soft courts with hard courts and just open them all up, had 49 responses. Then option 3 had 826 responses, which was to replace the soft courts with 10 pickleball courts, leave the 4 hard tennis courts alone, and just open it up for free play. And so you had a total of over 1,500 responses.
And I guess the situation there is the only option that had us bringing a concessionaire in to run it was that option 1. So.
All right, so our next steps, as it is today, absent a change in direction from the board, we would continue with the previously approved pickleball courts for $200,000 at Joni Moser. And then we'd advertise for another tennis vendor to operate the courts at Tanglewood. We'd leave the hard courts open for now for free play until a vendor was hired. And then we'd enter a contract for our annual soft court maintenance, so for $15,000.
And that presumes that we can find a vendor. What's a little different right now is every other time we've done it, we sort of had a vendor in the wings who was over here saying, I'm interested. Do we have anybody?
There's been some people who have expressed some interest in trying, but I don't know if they think we're going to pay them to do it, or if it'll be the same kind of concessionaire arrangement that we have now. And then alternatives would be to move pickleball project from Joni Moser to Tanglewood, and that's basically to convert those 6 courts into 10 pickleball courts, or convert soft courts to hard courts and just open it up to free play at Tanglewood and continue to do the project at Joni Moser
Well, hopefully after putting this on television and getting it in tomorrow morning's newspaper, you'll have several people interested. I hope that happens. Good idea.
With that, if there are any comments or questions, I'll be happy to take them, and the staff's here as well on how to move forward. But right now, we're planning to do what we were directed to do back in October, unless we hear something different.
Dr. Martin is the only tennis player.
I'm just trying to digest those results. That's kind of not what I was expecting. But we'd had a lot of interest in preserving probably the best soft courts around, which is a big issue. But I obviously pickleball, I can't deny the popularity. And the other side, and both tennis and pickleball, can bring in lots of tournaments, and both can bring in a few hotel nights and restaurants and some of those kind of things as a part of it. But That's an interesting, I guess without a vendor who can do that, I mean, I'm probably fine with doing that. I'm just surprised at the outcome, but that's strong. That's a strong differential.
And that was the argument when we were running it, and although it wasn't profitable, that the tangential activities like the gas stations and the restaurants and the hotels was kind of their argument that although it's not making money here, there is this other, benefit to having it.
Yeah, and the key is, of course, having a vendor that almost brings in with connections to something, whether it's USTA or something that's in tennis, that's going to bring in and the ability to attract a lot of people and to have tournaments. I mean, tournaments is kind of the part of the big deal that can make a lot more money in that. Become profitable.
Is there a deadline for getting a vendor?
Well, we need to start soon so they can prepare for next season because our fiscal year starts July 1. So we start looking now. Right now, the soft courts are closed, the hard courts are open, just because of the maintenance factor on the soft courts.
But during this process, have you had any negative feedback on the Joni Moser turning into pickleball courts?
No, only that I did have one person that wrote to us to basically say that they kind of take that court over at times, and tennis players can't get on it because the pickleball people keep coming one behind the other to use it. So there's never like a break.
Had a comment by an email saying that, we're in Kernersville, don't just give it to Louisville. We have tennis facilities at Kernersville Lake Park or something?
I don't think so. No.
Clemens is already saying the same thing.
Yeah. That Kernersville Park, their, what do they call it, July 4th Park, has pickleball played there. It is a big pickleball area, and I think they are on tennis courts there. And then I can tell you that all of the towns are considering kind of shifting to pickleball. In Washington Park, the Granville courts up there are consumed with pickleball now. It is like in the middle of the day. It's a weird thing actually. So it really, I mean, it does appear that, and perhaps people who were tennis players have kind of shifted over a little bit. There's a lot of demand for pickleball right now.
Older tennis players switch.
Yeah.
It's easier on your knees, and then it's not as quick. You don't have to be as quick on that.
Where pickleball can be played on the same, you have to basically on the same surface that our tennis.
You can play on the same surface. Now, if you play in the same orientation as the existing tennis court, the net's too high on a tennis court. So they have to kind of, change how they play. Now you can play sideways on the court, different orientation than tennis court. They do that.
And you have to
gotta
bring in
your own
portable-
nets and all that kind of
Portable
thing.
nets kind of issues.
But basically, it's the same, we don't have to build any modifications to the surface other than.
So if we did this on the soft course, we would, because we have to take that base off, and then you pour a new.
Thinking about Joni Moser mostly.
Yeah, there'd be some work done there too. I mean, it's got a lot of cracks and do some sealing, but $200,000 would do 10 courts and change the basketball court and all that.
And the pickleball folks clearly is an issue is that having to bring in portable nets and all those kind of things is a big hassle. And I think I've got a picture on my phone down in Brunswick County. They built pickleball courts brand new on big surface, and then you have the right size net. They're smaller, and you get those kind of dimensions. You can put 12 courts roughly in size of 6 or 7 tennis courts. So I think if you're going to do it, you might as well do it right, and they become dedicated pickleball courts, because that's where people are going to get the most use and be fired up. But you're right, small cities, the Tobacconville, they have 2 tennis courts, and one is just dominated by pickleball, and I haven't seen a person playing tennis there in a long time. Right. Same kind of issue. So, yeah, I agree. I agree.
So right now, we're looking to move forward with our original plan to do them at Joni Moser unless we hear something different. And we'd reach out for a vendor for tennis at Tanglewood if we find one. And if we don't, we'll come back to you again.
Good job.
All right, thanks, Damon. We also have two other, I didn't realize we have a little updated, two other discussion items. We have an update on vehicle challenges, and that's both the Damon and Scott Angel. And if this is good, we can jump right in here for that.
So thank you again. So we came to you a little while ago with an issue of supply chain and chips and so forth on purchasing vehicles. So we asked you to kind of give us a special disposition to put in an order for some chargers. And we had a letter from these people saying that if you don't get it in by this time, you won't get anything. And so you helped us to do that. And so we got it in. And then Scott's going to give you an update on how that went, which wasn't well. So we're going to try and go another way.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Board. So to elaborate a little bit further on what Damon was saying and to get into more detail, I'd first like to start by stepping back a couple of months to revisit where we've been with vehicle purchasing over the last several weeks, and then I'll move forward to kind of where we are now. So on December 2nd, General Services received notice that Dodge's window for ordering Durangos would be closing soon, and the company was advising customers to submit orders as soon as possible. We were advised that Dodge would not be open to taking orders for Durangos again until at least June of 2022, and maybe even longer than that. We were also advised at the same time that the window for ordering Chargers should be open for another couple of months, but there was no guarantee of this. On December 9th, just a week later, we received notice that the window for ordering Chargers would be closing soon, and possibly as soon as the week of December 13th. We were also informed at that time that Dodge's parent company, Stellantis, had issued a statement saying, and this is a quote, "Due to the ongoing industry-wide shortages in semiconductor chips and other critical parts, the 2022 production allocation for government fleet will be extremely limited." So these developments prompted discussions with the county manager and generated a request that was brought to you all in December to approve the purchase of Dodge vehicles for use by the Sheriff's Office ahead of a formal business meeting. The board's early approval of the request allowed us to meet the ordering deadline and issue a purchase order to Ilderton Dodge for the vehicles. And just a note, we sincerely appreciate the board's assistance with this proactive effort in such a time of supply shortage and uncertainty surrounding vehicles and your subsequent formal award of the purchase, which was approved at the January 6th meeting. So fast forward a little bit to today. And unfortunately, bad news, as Damon alluded to, we were notified last week by Ilderton that all of their orders for 2022 Chargers and Durangos were canceled by Dodge on February 25th. And they did not have any of these vehicles available for purchase. So the 17 Chargers and Durangos that we approached you about in December, order was canceled. Ilderton also informed us that the model year 2023 ordering would not open until July or August of this year, and that Charger production is anticipated to begin in December or later. And we've also are hearing and seeing that Dodge is likely going to discontinue the production of the Charger altogether in the near future. So given these developments, the fleet manager engaged with the Sheriff's Office to discuss other patrol vehicle options to pursue going forward. And really, there are not a lot of options out there right now. But two that were considered were the Chevrolet Tahoe and the Ford Explorer Interceptor Edition. The Sheriff's Office determined that they are interested in pursuing the Ford Explorer Interceptor patrol vehicle, which you may have seen some of these around the city because the city is transitioning towards using those for their patrol uses. The fleet manager researched the availability of the Explorers and found that they are on state contract, and he engaged the dealer with the state contract, who is Performance Ford in Clinton, North Carolina. Talked to them about the details of ordering and turnaround time, And they basically are taking orders, but noted that vehicle production is 30 weeks or more out on producing those vehicles. And the dealer also noted, and this is a quote from them, "As with everything these days, all new production is subject to cancellation if there are not enough production slots available or if supply chain issues arise. The vehicle pricing is locked on these orders if they are built as 2022 models. However, if the factory chooses, they may not offer to build these as 2023 models for the same price." So obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty with vehicle purchases, no matter which manufacturer you turn to, and a lot of things that are out of our control. And we kind of feel like we're basically to the point of needing to have our name in the hat anytime there's an opportunity for vehicles when they actually do become available for purchase, so we're in the best possible position we can be in to take advantage of that availability. Otherwise, we'll be behind the competition for these resources. So given the nature of the vehicle market and circumstances we're navigating, General Services and the Sheriff's Office are interested in pursuing an order of Explorers for the Sheriff's Office use, if the board agrees with moving in that direction.
Talk a little bit, talk a little bit about unit price, because that's another issue, going from a traditional sedan to a.
Sure, yeah, so when we were looking at Chargers back in December, the cost for those was a little over $29,000. And moving up over to a different style of vehicle, as Dudley said, that cost would move up a little bit. And we haven't verified this completely, but we think it's going to be around $35,000 for a Interceptor.
I've never heard of anything like that in the car industry, ever. I mean, it's really bad.
It is. It is a tough time to get information you can rely on and move forward with. Very difficult time.
Would it make any sense to basically take our budget for this year and buy the more expensive Interceptors but buy fewer of them, which not only gives us a chance to see how they work, it stays within budget, and then make a decision for next year?
I certainly think that's something we can look at doing and discussing with the Sheriff's Office. I think so.
Yeah, we were not envisioning increasing any kind of mid-year budget for it, but simply using the funds that have been appropriated to buy what we can now in the Interceptor line, which is how many? Did you get that number?
How many we want to purchase?
Yeah.
We want to purchase 20.
And funds are available.
Yes.
How many would you, replacement vehicles or new vehicles?
They're new vehicles that would be replacing older vehicles.
Replacing all-
Yes.
So coming from the airplane side, you can put a new motor in a car. What, are there parts that can bring them back, or is it just not reasonable?
I mean, that's always something you can look at, but it would be putting a lot of money into an older vehicle. And I think we would probably get some pushback from the Sheriff's Office, not speaking for them, but you're still utilizing older vehicles in the patrol type situation, even with those newer parts on it, because old and
I
new.
guess the parts are hard to get as well.
That is an issue too. Yeah, availability with parts is certainly a concern.
Well, clearly, part of our strategy is going to be to fix our existing fleet. I mean, we are hands down, we're going to be in a mode where we're just going to be doing more intensive replacement than we normally would have done, because of the uncertainty of just keeping the fleet size the same. The other issue is, the gang intervention, juvenile intervention team has vehicles associated with them. And so we've actually got more staff and more vehicles right now. So just a lot of moving parts, but it's a very uncertain time. If it's satisfactory to the board, I think I'm hearing enough concern about the position we're in that we would go ahead and try to bring you an item. And if I need to commit in advance to just get our name in the pot, do that, knowing that we could pull our name back out if we had to. But
That's right.
But go ahead and get our position in the queue anyway, and then we'll bring it to the board. If
Could
that's
I
okay.
ask you, please, are the Tahoes a similar price?
I don't have a price for those, but I can certainly find out what they are. I think they're right around the same. I think the issue there is they're not as nimble, I think, around town and things like that. You see them more out on the highway, like with the highway patrol and that type of environment. But yeah, be happy to try to find that for you. Thank you.
Any other questions for Scott? Scott, thank you for.
Thank you.
They've moved quickly to try to get all that together, so thank you.
Our last discussion item is an update on the 3810 Liberty Street property acquisition from Kirby Robinson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Board. As you know, we've been working with our friends in the school system to relocate their maintenance operations from Lansing Drive. We've got until June 30th of 2024, or 2 years from when a CO is issued for the Garner project to do that. That Garner project is expected to be completed later this fall. So the clock is going to start ticking here pretty soon. And obviously a big piece of that project has been identifying suitable replacement property. There are three main components we're moving from Lansing. That's office space, so you got office-based personnel, maintenance shop, and their fleet facility. So in conjunction with the schools, we identified 3810 North Liberty Street, which is the old credit union, as a great relocation site for maintenance staff offices and other office-oriented functions. So at your December 16th meeting, you authorized county manager to enter into a purchase agreement for that, and staff have been investigating it since that time. I'm happy to report that we closed on that property last Friday. So really our next step in this journey is kind of finalizing an interlocal agreement with the school system to kind of talk about how the construction administration of that facility will work and some other factors that kind of roll up into that for your consideration. I hope to bring that to you in the next month or two. And obviously, once that agreement is finalized, we really go into a mode of renovation and upfit of their facilities, or of those facilities. So I'm excited. We've got it under contract. It's a good-looking facility. There's some work to be done there, but I think that we're going to be able to meet our obligation to the Garner folks and get into that facility within our timeline. I'm happy to answer any questions the board has.
Yeah, just one question. What was the final offer?
The board authorized a contract at $725,000, which was $25,000 less than the asking price.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Thank you, Kirby.
Thank you.
We are ready to turn the meeting over to the county manager.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Really, the items we have today is finalize this agenda for the March 17th meeting. I would like to take a moment to introduce a new staff person. If you remember back in December, we bid Jerry Bates, our purchasing director, who is our purchasing director, but he's also the City of Winston's purchasing director. We bid him farewell, and his position has been filled by somebody that has been in the city organization for quite some time. And if I could get Chantel McClam to come up, you got to come up and do this. Sorry about that. But we are glad to have Chantel as our purchasing director. She has been with the City of Winston-Salem for over 21 years. She most recently was the director of CityLink. So if you called the CityLink service, she made sure all that magic happened and happened well. She was an employee accounting and payroll manager for them for a number of years. Before that, she got her master's degree from the UNC Greensboro and went to High Point University. So, Chantel, we are glad to have you in this new role.
Yeah. Chantel.
Chantel, actually. Chantel McClam.
Okay.
It's spelled with the A, but it's pronounced the same way as the name.
Just want to make sure.
Looking forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Don't go, we want a speech.
You will get one about something we purchased at some point in time. So, but welcome, Chantel. That's going to be confusing. So, but I'll work through it. All right. So the only other item we have this afternoon is just finalizing this agenda. We've changed up our format, so we are going to have the presentations from the different departments as part of this, in this time. So, and I appreciate that. That actually has helped us from a work load perspective and making sure that the items that you see in the agenda item have been reviewed sufficiently, and we're not have to make changes with it. So anyway, I'll dive into it. You heard last Thursday from Damon around the resolution authorizing the open display and discharge of firearms at Triad Park under limited circumstances with the concurrence of Guilford County. He did that presentation. Any updates for the board on that?
Yes, so after last Thursday's briefing, so the provision on the inspection and general liability insurance have been removed, and then all other things are the same. I shared with Guilford County the reception that the item got last week, which seemed like it was favorable, and so I'm waiting to hear back from them, because in the end, once the board agrees to allow this kind of activity at the park, then ultimately it will be up to them to sanction the event, since it's in Guilford County, and it will be their ordinances that apply. And so, but I've not heard back from them. So.
So, under the last therefore, D, you'll have to wait till you hear back from Guilford County before you can remove that.
So the current resolution has been revised, and you don't have the revised version. You're looking at one that has all the way through H, and now it stops at F, and those two provisions for insurance and for the inspection have been removed. So there's two fewer letters on the actual one. You have an older version.
I guess I have the old one.
You do.
Thank you.
So just in terms of, is it two back and forth? You're waiting to hear back, and then you're gonna, if we act next Thursday, it goes back to them again?
So if you act next Thursday, then you've okayed allowing open carry and discharge at Triad Park. Then the only time that it could be done is if Guilford County sanctions it. But you will have already approved it, so then it kind of will be in their purview at that point. Whereas right now, neither one of us is okay with it, the way our ordinance is currently written and the rules at the park. And what you're agreeing to right now is that the rules at the park would be okay with a 21-gun salute during these events on certain times under certain conditions. And then Guilford would agree by sanctioning it through a letter or some other way. So once you act, then it'll be up to Guilford to say yay or nay as well.
I got you. I guess I'm just trying to think of I think the date is March 29th. And I was just, this is working with the county manager in Guilford?
Yes, so I've actually talked to their deputy manager and their parks director there, and I've tried to reach out to the manager, but I haven't heard back from him directly. So once the board acts, it really will be on them to just sanction the event, and then it can happen. We're already preparing as if they will by acquiring signage and so forth that the resolution indicates needs to happen.
So, okay, so it's likely the county manager could make that decision after the 17th, and the timeline would be met.
That's right.
All right, thank you.
All right. Any other questions on that? All right. You got the minutes for the meeting of March 3rd, 2022. I don't believe they are live in the system yet.
They were emailed out over lunch.
Emailed over lunch. Thank you. Very good. All right, we've got a couple of budget and finance matters. Actually got 3 through 6. Item 3, and I'll just get Kyle Wolf to come on up and he can shoot through most of these. Item 3 is an amendment to the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget ordinance to transfer funds from contingency for Forsyth Technical Community College.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So for the past several years, the county has set aside funding within our contingency as part of its annual budget due to the uncertainty around the state budget and what that could possibly include as far as salary increases for employees of the community college system. And so based on the state budget that was passed and signed into law, the increase is 2.5% for FY22. And so this amendment moves funding from contingency in order to basically fund the increase for the 44 locally funded positions at the college. So that's all that is.
Questions
Any
for
questions?
Kyle? All right, thank you, Kyle. Item 4, stay there. Resolution approving a revision to the fiscal year 2021-2022 Home and Community Care Block Grant Funding Plan for Older Adults and authorizing the execution of the necessary documents to submit the revised plan.
Sure. And so the Forsyth County Aging Services Planning Committee is recommending a revision to the FY22 Home and Community Care Block Grant funding plan based on an additional $132,257 that it's received from the state budget. And so the Shepherd Center of Winston-Salem would receive $15,128 for its senior center operations. The Shepherd Center of Kernersville would receive $4,000, additional $4,000 for its senior center operations. Financial Pathways would receive about $10,000 for its senior financial care program, and then Senior Services would receive an additional $103,129 allocated between their home-delivered meals and home aid services and their information options counseling. And I can try to answer any questions you have about that item.
All right, very good. Item 5 is also yours. It's an amendment to the 2021-2022 budget ordinance that appropriates fund balance for the FY21 Church and 4th Street parking deck annual county contribution.
Right, and so this amendment's necessary to appropriate fund balance to pay the invoice from the city of Winston-Salem for the Church and 4th Street parking deck for FY22. Essentially, we budgeted an amount based on what was provided from the city of Winston-Salem's budget office in back in May, I guess, or April. And it was much lower than what the actual invoice was for this year. It appears that some debt service was not included in their calculation that they had sent over during the budget process. And so we just need to appropriate some funds from fund balance in order to pay that invoice.
Yeah. So that's the bad news. The good news is I think next year is actually the last payment on that. And just to sort of remind you, that parking deck, the Church and 4th Street parking deck, was really an economic development incentive for the construction of the, is it 1 West 4th Street? Of that office building there on 4th Street. And so, and that building actually at the time, I think was the highest valued single property in Forsyth County. It was the subject of an appeal to the Property Tax Commission. The property did drop some in that particular instance. But it's one of those things where we're almost out of that economic development incentive. So, and it's a fairly complex formula for because the parking deck does generate revenue. It does not generate enough revenue to cover it, but it does generate revenue. So, are any other questions on that?
Just curious, Kyle, what was the payment?
The payment is going to be $375,200.
Yep.
And so we had only appropriated, and there was $40,000 essentially included in the budget. That was the amount that they had given us. So it's very significant.
Yep. And Gordon, so one of the issues that will come to you at some point in time is our kind of position with continued ownership of that and what our rights are under the economic development incentive to kind of extract ourselves out of that. And so I know Gordon is deep into reviewing what those options are and what the triggers and timeframes are on that. But more to come, I guess. All right, thanks, Kyle. Appreciate that. Item 6 is an amendment to the FY21-2022 budget ordinance. It increases revenues and appropriations for the Forsyth County Department of Public Health for Women's and Children's Health Section Nutrition Services. Adam Pendlebury is probably on the line. Adam, are you there?
Hey there, County Manager. Can you hear me?
We can, but your volume is really low, Adam, so try to speak up if you can.
Sure, absolutely. Good afternoon, Commissioners. The item before you is a budget ordinance amendment to appropriate $72,048 from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services for the Women, Infants, and Children program at the Forsyth County Department of Public Health. I'm happy to take any questions you might have on this.
I think you're clear. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Yep. Item 7 is a resolution authorizing execution of a grant agreement with North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts for a domestic violence court coordinator. You got an associated budget ordinance amendment for $50,000. Kyle, is this one yours?
Again, so the county received $50,000 as part of the state budget for a domestic violence court coordinator position. This position will support and enhance the work of the district attorney's domestic violence unit. by working with prosecutors to ensure witnesses' information ready for court, ensuring victims are contacted, have questions answered, and also work through pandemic paperwork backlogs. And so this item is appropriating that $50,000 into the budget and also approving the grant agreement with the North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts. Try to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you, Kyle. All right, we've got some contracts. Item 8 is a resolution authorizing an execution of an interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and the City of Winston-Salem for the administration of this program that we've talked a lot about, called the Cure Violence. So, Chantel.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and good afternoon, Commissioners. The resolution before you is seeking authorization to execute an interlocal agreement with the City of Winston-Salem for administration of the Cure Violence Program. The interlocal agreement includes the following main points. The county and city agree to pilot the program through December 31st, 2024. That date aligns with ARPA requirements, so we will have about 2.5 years to implement the program unless the IRS provides us with a date extension. The county and city will jointly agree on the target area for implementation. The county and city will jointly agree on an evaluation model and organization to conduct a third-party evaluation. The county and city will prepare a joint RFP process to determine if there's a viable nonprofit organization to administer the program. If a nonprofit is selected, the health department would be responsible for monitoring the performance and compliance of that nonprofit administrator. If a nonprofit is not selected, the city and county agrees that the health department would administer the program, which essentially would mean that we would hire employees directly as county employees. The city agrees to reimburse the county 50% of the cost of operating the program in an amount not to exceed $750,000. City management will present this same interlocal agreement at the city's Public Safety Committee for a recommendation on Monday, March 14th. If recommended by the Public Safety Committee, it will be voted on by the full City Council on Monday, March 21st. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Excuse me, you did mention the evaluation component as a part of this. Where are we on the Dr. Butts kind of project?
Yes, so Dr. Butts, we're in the process of our contract. I've actually drafted the contract. He has approved our piece of the contract. It is working through our own internal process, finance, the attorney's office. So hopefully by this week, hopefully it'll be approved. He anticipates coming the end of this month, March 30th, 31st, and April 1st. And during that time, he will meet with several potential third-party evaluators, provide us with recommendations. So we're on track with that.
And are those going to be lined up before he gets here?
Absolutely.
I have a question about Dr. Butts. Will he be able to come and speak with us as well?
I can make sure. We have not even worked on his schedule yet. We're working through that, but absolutely. You all actually do not meet on March 31st, but I can set up some small groups while he's here for those that's interested.
Yeah, I liked his presentation online, so I would love to meet him in person, so thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Does the contract involve the share information with law enforcement that was talked about?
We are not at that point. This is just the interlocal agreement with the city, essentially for them agreeing to cover half of the cost. We have not gotten through the RFP process or anything like that.
Okay, please don't forget that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thanks, Chantel. Agenda item 9 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement with William V. McGill and Company doing business as McGill School Nurse Supplies for the purchase of audiometers to conduct hearing screening at Winston Forsyth County Schools. Adam Pendlebury should be on the line. Adam.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This resolution is for the purchase of 65 audiometers at the school nursing program for use at Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. The total of this purchase is $53,530. This purchase is an allowable use under some of our available COVID-19 relief funds from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. Again, I'm happy to take any questions you have on this.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Adam. Agenda item 10 is a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract with Waste Management of Carolinas Incorporated for the operation of Forsyth County's 3 recycling convenience centers. Minor Barnett.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
So as you know, we have 3 county recycling centers where citizens can drop off household recyclables for free to divert them away from landfill disposal, ultimately for use as feedstock for manufacturers, manufacturing processes. So you've seen most of this information before, so I won't read it all to you, but this is a summary of our recent recycling activities in the county, showing number of households participating in the optional subscription service for curbside collection, and the volume that's been collected, and the volume that's being dropped off at the convenience centers, and then the total. And part of my screen is blocked by the pop-ups, so I can't see all of the information. But anyway, as you can see on the lower line and in the lower right corner, we're recycling more material now than we have been in the past, with these 2 options available for our citizens.
Before you leave that slide, could you explain the difference between the 2 columns, volume and centers volume? You got a subscriber, and you have a volume and a centers volume. I just want to know what the difference is.
Okay, so the volume is the quantity of
Oh,
recyclables
that's
collected in the curbside.
this is the part that's coming from the center and the part that's coming from the pickups at homes. Got it, sorry. It's odd how those numbers really flip-flop around in the,
Right.
I mean, home recycling has gone down nearly 40%. But yet the center recycling has gone up
Right.
a lot.
Some of that is not predictable, and I don't have an explanation to offer to explain the basis for it.
Okay, thank you.
So in the state of North Carolina, there are about a dozen types of materials that are banned from landfill disposal. And the easiest way to comply with the landfill ban for some of those commodities would be to recycle them either through our curbside program or dropping them off at our convenience centers. A lot of the materials that are banned from landfill disposal are not accepted in either the curbside program or at the convenience centers, but there are convenient opportunities to recycle those as well, like the automotive fluids and batteries and some of the other things. So our office provides a lot of information to the public when they call with questions about what they can do with these different items. The 3 recycling centers are located in Kernersville, Pofftown, and at the Haynes Mill Road solid waste facility indicated by the red markers on this map. This is a picture of the Kernersville facility that has a nice tall rain shelter so people can pull in on rainy days and drop off materials without having to step out into the rain. This is the Pofftown site, which is the smallest footprint of the 3 sites, but it still gets approximately the same volume as the Kernersville site as far as the amount of usage that it receives. And this is a photo of the compactor and 40 cubic yard receiver and attendant shelter at the Haynes Mill Road site inside the gate of the solid waste facility. Compactors really saved a lot of money, and it has saved more than enough to pay for the salary for the attendants that staff that site, and the attendants have been very successful at reducing the amount of contamination because we used to get a lot of random stuff dumped in our recycle boxes, and the contamination rate was really high. And that little red building used to be one of our air monitoring shelters that we decommissioned and repurposed because we had it and we needed it here. So this slide summarizes our recent convenience center operating costs. Those costs include attendant hours, container rentals, managing the materials. And if you would look at that revenue line for a second, you can see that we had a dramatic decrease in revenue from the commodity rebates from 2017 through 2019, lingered into 2020, and now it has recently improved significantly in the last year. So we hope to see that continue to improve. That is based on the value of the recyclable commodities, and their market values determine the rebates that we receive for the materials collected. So on the left is a summary of our current operating costs. for the 3 sites combined. And on the right is a projection of our anticipated operating costs if we pursue this new contract with Waste Management to continue the operation of the 3 sites. Obviously, the costs are going up significantly, and we hope that some of those increases might be offset by continued improvement in the market value of the commodities, but that is something that's, difficult to predict. So the proposed contract includes an initial term from starting April 1st of this year, which would be the next month, and running through the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, 2025. 2 of the sites operate 8 to 5 Tuesday to Saturday. The 3rd site operates the same hours as the solid waste facility, which is 5.5 days a week. They only operate half day on Saturday. In the proposed contract, our rebate revenue would be based on us receiving, the county receiving 80%, an 80% share of the actual sales values for what the commodities are sold for, minus a processing fee of $120 a ton. And that's for the commingled materials, which would be bottles and cans and mixed paper. For corrugated cardboard, which is pre-sorted at the site, so citizens drop off the cardboard in a different roll-off than they do the commingled materials. The rebate will be based on the regional average market value minus a processing fee of $50 a ton. And the processing fee for glass is still subject to further negotiation. They're proposing a fee, I think, of $90 a ton to process glass, but what we are negotiating is a proposal for us to pre-sort the glass by having the citizens put the glass bottles in a roll-off by itself, and then for Waste Management to haul that pre-sorted glass to Owens, Illinois, the bottle manufacturing company in northern Davidson County, where they are currently constructing a bunker. And we've been negotiating with their management, including a gentleman I think in Texas, and he's agreed to let us dump our glass there for free as long as it's pre-sorted and not mixed with other materials. So what we are asking Waste Management to consider is hauling our glass with no processing fee, because instead of processing it to be marketed, we're providing a place. We've negotiated an opportunity for them to have a free place to dump it in a bunker at the bottle manufacturer. There will be a slight change in the plastics types that are accepted, and we've already talked about getting some new signs made to post at the sites to make it clear to citizens using the facilities that instead of all bottles, resins 1 through 7, it will now be bottles numbered 1, 2, and 5, which are number 1 is polyethylene terephthalate, which are the clear bottles like your water is in front of you today. And number 2 is high-density polyethylene, which would be milk jugs and similar containers. And number 5 is polypropylene, which are the caps on your water bottles, and also some other types of bottles are actually made from polypropylene. That's it.
So why don't you go back to the one that had the fairly substantial increase? And so, obviously we've not seen this kind of increase in our cost of operating these facilities really since we've been operating them, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is significant. And so the driver of the increase, the reason they're proposing the increase, the first item is the compensation for the site attendants that work on the sites is increasing from currently $10.84 an hour to $20. And they told me many years ago that they regretted agreeing to that $10 per hour rate with a CPI adjustment. Is why it's $10.84 is due to CPI adjustments. And they have claimed that they were losing money on that for many years, and warned me several years ago that when the current contract came to an end, that this number would have to be changed because they could not agree to continue at that rate because it's just not sustainable for them. And as you can see, if you can read if it's large enough to read, we've been paying a flat rate per pull for them to take a 40 or take a roll-off box away from one of our sites, dump it at the material recovery facility, bring it back empty to continue using it. We paid a flat rate across all 3 sites, regardless of what's in the box, and regardless of where it's located. So they're proposing 3 different rates for pulls based on the location of those sites relative to the materials recovery facility, not only for the mileage, but for the time it takes for the driver to drive the mileage. And so with the Kernersville site being the closest to the material recovery facility off of Union Cross Road at Wahlberg Road, they're proposing a rate of $155 per pull. For the Haynes Mill Road site, which is the second closest, $185. And for the Pofftown site, which is the furthest from the material recovery facility, an increased rate of $240 per pull. And, I pressed them on this for a legitimate explanation, and their position is they feel like they have no choice but to pass some of their cost along to us because they're experiencing increased cost. And they've been operating these sites under the current contract for 10 years. And I think, they've learned a lot during those 10 years. And I think they consider these rates to be the best they can offer. So there's a more detailed narrative document attached to this agenda item for you to read. But in it, we just explain that we were included in the city's request for proposals last summer, and then we did our own request for proposals in the fall. And in response to the city's RFP, there were only 2 vendors that responded demonstrating interest. One was Waste Management, and the other was Republic Services. Republic Services' proposed rates were significantly higher than Waste Management's. Then when we did our RFP independently, Waste Management was the only responding vendor, contractor showing interest, and their rates were consistent with what they proposed in response to the city's RFP. So what we were trying to see is if we would benefit or not benefit from operating these centers independently of the city, or whether there might be some benefit to staying coupled with the city and their residential collection service for over 70,000 households. But it didn't seem to affect the rate.
2 quick questions. Term of this contract?
April 1st of 2022 through June 30th, 2025. So 3 years
Three-year
plus,
contract.
plus the last quarter.
And what was that hauling charge that was uniform prior to, like right now?
So it was $125.55 is what we're paying right now, and that's the base rate from the contract 10 years ago, adjusted by this annual CPI adjustments between 2012 and now. So going from 125 and some change per pull to between 155 and 240.
And those, there were adjustments in that based on fuel costs and other things during that previous 10-year period? Is that what there were adjustments?
We didn't consider fuel costs, but it's my understanding that fuel cost is calculated into that consumer price index for this industry sector. And all this was negotiated, discussed, and developed before the current observations that we're seeing with fuel cost in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
And one more point of interest is the negotiations were finalized this morning, and about just over 3 hours ago, Waste Management signed the draft of the contract, and so we're going to be entering it into our contract processing system later this afternoon.
They're a good company to deal with. They've been there for a long time, haven't they?
Right, yes.
Could you explain to me the complete duties of a site attendant? I think I know, but I need you to share with me.
So they're responsible to unlock the gate at the time that we say the center opens, to lock the gate shortly after we say that the center is closed, and in the meantime, to direct traffic, and to provide some supervision and helpful guidance to citizens that come in the gate who either don't know where to put their materials or come through the gate with materials that we don't accept. And so a big part of their job is to prevent contamination so that we don't have people depositing inappropriate materials in our recycling containers, because if we exceed a certain rate of contamination, we're penalized for that. Because Waste Management has to separate all those materials and reload them on a truck and take them to the landfill if they're not part of the recycling stream that we can process, that they can process. And so before we had attendance at Haynes Mill Road, we were seeing contamination rates approaching 30 to 50%. And, I used to go up there and take photographs of just all kinds of things like televisions and just, you name it, it was in there. I mean, bags of trash. And at one point, I'm not trying to be dramatic, but at one point I got a call from the guy at the MRF who wanted to make sure I knew that one of our boxes from Haynes Mill Road, where we did not have a site attendant, was dumped on the MRF floor, and a whole lot of hypodermic needles attached to syringes were mixed in those recyclables. And then they had a hazardous situation that they had to deal with, to get that stuff cleaned up without anybody getting hurt. But we saw a dramatic decrease in the tonnage at Haynes Mill Road after we added the attendants, because there was somebody there to help people understand what they could and couldn't deposit in our boxes.
And do you have problems hiring people now, or is there a shortage?
So those are Waste Management employees, and some of them are Waste Management employees, and some of them are hired through a temporary agency.
So just as an observation, as a user of the Haynes Mill site, that recycling center, at the beginning, a lot of goodness, a lot of support, a lot of checking, a lot of looking, obviously teaching people habits. I must admit, probably the last 10 times I've been there, I've never seen a person. It's just there. And so there's a car there, but there's nobody out sort of checking stuff. I meant that, and I'm part of at the beginning was teaching folks, but I must admit, I kind of don't see that person. And if the contamination thing, if we are penalized on the contamination side, if that person's not doing their job, which is Waste Management's person, we should not be getting penalized. Is that still in play, that we can get penalized for contamination?
So we've had that exact conversation, almost verbatim, the way you just expressed it. And they understand that preventing contamination and ensuring the appropriate materials are being received is probably the most important job of that position, maybe behind ensuring safety of the visitors. But at any of those sites, if 4 or 5 cars pull in at the same time and 4 or 5 people get out and start tossing things in the roll-offs, it can be difficult to pre-screen. So my response to that is, then when things slow down, they need to go around looking in the boxes and pulling things out that don't belong there. But in some cases, if it's not a matter of it just needing to go into a different recycle box with the other recyclables, if it needs to be disposed of at the landfill, there's still a cost associated with managing the material that needs to be rejected. And so we were not successful at getting them to agree to completely remove the contamination fee, and the level of contamination that would result in a fee is 15% of the quantity, I guess, based on weight or volume.
Yeah, it seems to me there'd be a tolerance level on that, and once it goes beyond that, if let's just say they can't fill the position for a month, and the contamination rate goes very high.
So we would not agree to let them operate without an attendant. It's their responsibility to make sure there's somebody at that site who unlocks the gate in the morning and locks it in the afternoon and is overseeing the
But at Haynes Mill,
operation
that's
during
not the
day.
case. There's no locking gates, and it's a part of a single gate
Right.
for the entire landfill.
Right, I'm thinking the other two. So at Haynes, they're responsible to get there when the gate's unlocked by the utility staff. And, we would be very interested in hearing from any citizen that visits that site and doesn't see evidence that the attendant is actively performing their duties. And we would address that within a few minutes.
You want me to report to you every week that the car's there and I don't see a person?
So There has been a little bit of turnover among the attendants that was a result of their performance or lack thereof. And we will continue to address that as it needs to be addressed.
Man, I had one quick question, please. The proposed new contract rates, are they comparable to what happens in other counties that are somewhat similar size to Forsyth?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
We would need to identify another county that has a recycling-only convenience center to compare this to. A lot of counties that have convenience centers also accept solid waste and household garbage on the same, inside the same fence as the recyclables are dropped off. So we would, I'm sure there are some recycling-only convenience centers in the state, and we could look into that.
Any other questions for Minor? Minor, thank you for.
Obviously, it's very thorough, and I appreciate that. It's just that, boy, that's a big increase.
It is, and I guess the other consideration would be whether we just discontinued providing that service, which is possible.
I think the service is really important. I mean, I think the environmental impact on that's important, and kind of makes people feel like they're doing their good duty, their good deed to do that. We don't want to get people out of the habit of recycling.
Right. That was our sense, but clearly if this will have an impact in Minor's budget next year, and so, if we have any sense that we need to think differently about that, please let us know. Minor, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, very good. So items 11 through 22 are appointments, and I believe all those have closed. And so you've got the folks there to consider as you make those appointments. You've got 3 tax administration matters. Item 23 is the resolution acknowledging receipt of tax collector's report of the total amount of unpaid 2021 taxes that are liens on real property, in order the tax collector to advertise such liens. So John's going to come up and explain what you need to do to not be in the paper coming up, and then you've got two reports.
Oh, boy, I'm going to hear this. This is going to be good, isn't it, John?
Always, yes, sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Your approval acknowledges receipt of a report of unpaid property taxes that constitutes a lien on real property as of the beginning of February. It also orders me to publish any remaining unpaid property taxes in local newspapers. This year, we plan to advertise in 4 newspapers, those being the Winston-Salem Journal, the Winston-Salem Chronicle, Kernersville News, and the Clemens Courier. Currently, we plan to advertise during the week of either May 9th or May 16th. So the key point for folks watching is to make sure you've paid us at least by April 22nd to avoid having your name in the newspaper. So April 22nd is a big day to make sure you're not known to your neighbors for not.
There used to be a commissioner who saw it as an honor to have his name printed in that, and he never did anything about it, so.
Well, we do follow up with all the names that are in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Very good. Any questions for John?
I'd like to make an observation. He always looks businesslike when he appears before this board. Look at that, white shirt, bow tie, hair combed. I mean, he's a real.
Dresses up nice.
That looks
right.
great.
Yeah, that's right. Allegheny, one of those Allegheny County guys. That's right. Thank you, John. So you've got 24, 25, and 26 are all refunds, and they're fairly self-explanatory. 2 added items that were time sensitive. Liz White, I believe, is, hey, Liz, come on up. With DSS, she's got 2 budget ordinance amendments that had some time constraints on them. You got an amendment to the FY22 budget to appropriate additional funds for low-income household water assistance program, and also for the Share the Warmth program. So.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We've got 2 items in front of you. One is for the Share the Warmth program. We got an additional $7,532.54 to assist families with heating and cooling needs. That brings our total this year up to $32,694.33. The reason it was walked in is because the NC FAST does the eligibility for energy, and it decides whether it comes out of share the warmth or not, and we only have $80 left in that pot of money, and we are waiting to pay some assistance for some families. The other one is the low-income household water assistance program. This was new this year. We initially got $659,455, and we have served 977 households. We collaborated with the city. They gave us a list of families that had either been disconnected or were at risk of being disconnected. We started with the disconnected families and served those first to get their services back operating, and then went to the ones that were in risk of being disconnected. We have not gotten through that whole list yet. We ran out of funding. We advocated to the state to receive more funding, and they did do a reallocation from other counties that were not spending and gave us $300,000 more towards assisting families with water. Any questions on either one of the agenda items?
Good report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. That is it for the agenda items. If I could ask Damon to talk about an event next week.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. So the first of two input sessions on the multi-use agricultural event center that we're proposing at Rolling Hills will be held next Tuesday, March 15th at 6 o'clock at Tobaccoville's Community Center. And then there'll be a second one on March 30th, that Wednesday at 6 o'clock at the same place.
All right. Very good. So that is it. It is only 3:15. So
I can't believe it.
Of course, we did start at 10.
Right. I wasn't going to say that.
Could I have just a minute, Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
The Reopen Ad Hoc Committee met this week, and we talked about the emergency order. And Gordon shared with us what some other counties have done. Can you share that, Gordon, please?
Yes, and excuse me, I certainly haven't looked at all the counties, but a quick search revealed that Wake County had rescinded their declaration of state of emergency the end of last month, and Durham County did the same this past Monday. Other counties, such as Orange County, still have theirs in effect. I don't, as I said last week, I don't know of any negative impact from rescinding the declaration of state of emergency at the county level. There is still a declaration at the state level, which is ongoing. The governor has said that there's some benefit from receiving vaccinations or something like that at the state level. I don't know of any such requirement at the local level.
It seemed to be a consensus, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Elamine, but I think, the municipalities are involved in this ad hoc committee and whatnot, and I would just like to see Forsyth County remove our order. I think you can put those emergency orders in place, but if they're ongoing, at some time I think they lose their credibility if you just keep it in place for a long period of time. But I just wondered if this board was interested in removing ours.
Well, your statement is encouraging primarily because our public health director showed charts where the pandemic is on the way out on every chart he's got, which doesn't mean it's all over with.
Right.
But there is evidence on the part of his department that it is being affected and has been affected by the rules currently in place.
That's suggesting a yes or a no.
With me?
Yeah.
It's not my decision, it's your decision and Richard's decision, Tanya's decision, and I will go along with you because I think it's always good to be with the people that I love.
I think it probably is.
There you go. You're saying let's get rid of it, right? Yeah. Okay, well, I agree with Commissioner Martin, I'm sorry. How do you feel about that, Gloria?
I'm fine with it. That's
So,
the reason I brought it up 2 weeks in a row.
Ted?
It's like the news says breaking news. It's not. So if the emergency is over, Yeah, we gotta get out of it.
All right. Richard,
Lift?
you ready to go along?
You on the lift?
Yeah, you got a unanimous vote, Gloria.
Can I take 30 seconds?
Can we vote it?
No, we can't vote, but this can be done two different ways. It could be rescinded by the chairman at any time, or.
You mean I have that kind of power?
You have that kind of power.
I hereby rescind it.
Well, let's get a document together. I'm sure the clerk can get you, I'll work with Ashley and we can get you something tomorrow if that's what you choose to do.
Anytime. I've got a witness right here, so.
Otherwise, the full board could vote next Thursday.
To make it official.
They don't have to. I'm just saying there are two options.
Oh,
But did we vote to put it in place, or did you just do it?
I just did it, but then
No,
to
I
make it
mean,
official for his
originally,
legal department, we can vote on it.
Originally, the chairman issued it.
That's what I thought. Originally, you did it,
Yeah,
so.
and I originally just took it back.
Right. So I don't think we need to vote on it.
Well, it'll make Gordon happy, though. Happiness is very important to me.
I'll be happy either way. I just think we should have an official document that you sign, so we can certainly
I'll
get
sign
that to
anything you
you.
put in front of me that'll take care of the situation.
Please don't say that.
Is that it? Ted?
We adjourn.
Ted moves we adjourn. I'll second the motion. We're adjourned.